Welcome back to episode 14 of the NoStoppingKev Show. I don't know why I did that.
20, yeah.
I don't know. 14 is a special number.
Why is 14 a special number?
Well, I'm glad you asked, sir. Because that's the number I wore when we won the championship and I was league MVP. And also I wore that number for 2 years in high school, junior and senior year. So, yeah, special place in my heart. But yeah, so speaking of what I used to wear back in high school, we're talking a little bit today about going back to school. Used to like school, Dad?
Did I like it?
Yeah.
No, I just had to go.
School was lit. What you talking about?
Well, I really just went to school. I wasn't really into it.
You was just there?
Yeah.
You was just there so you didn't get fined?
Well, I mean, I had to go to school. You had to get some kind of education, but like I just never really took advantage of it. You know, which I didn't want you to make them same mistakes that I made or live the life that I was living. You know.
Yeah.
You know, probably the most exciting thing for me in school was playing basketball. To go to school to play basketball.
Yeah, I think, for me, when I was younger, growing up, thinking about going back to school, I think the older I got, the more I kind of look forward to it. Just because I think every kid doesn't want the summer to end, right?
Right.
It's like you want to stay there as long as you can. You want to just have fun. You don't want to have to go back to your structured day. You want to stay in the summertime when you're at summer camp, doing whatever you're doing. And, just living life, having fun, not having to do work, homework. Most kids don't like that, but I remember, I think one of my cousins once, when one of our aunts or someone asked, y'all ready to go back to school? And he was like, yeah, school is fun. So, when you want to be like your older cousins, trying to mimic that, right?
Right.
So I tricked myself into being I wanted to be cool too, because I thought he was cool for saying that. No one ever said that. I was like, you're right, school is fun. But then when I got older, I was like, think about it. You've been away from most of your friends for about 3 months. There is I did find enjoyment in learning new things, and excelling in school kind of helped me out too. Just from doing well. That was something I liked. That was a personal thing, which I get, not everyone's like that. But in that regard, I did look forward to kind of going back. And then as I started playing sports in school, that was something else to look forward to, because I could continue playing structured or, organized athletics, which was mostly basketball. So I think I definitely would. I was looking forward to it. I guess you was looking forward to going back to hoop, so you can go drop 40 and still lose.
You know, the thing about it sometimes is who you're around.
Mm-hmm.
I can always go back there because, see, I could always remember. I remember a girl that lived right across the street from me, and she said, "I know you're glad your son playing basketball now." And I told her, no, I don't care if he never picked up the ball. And I said that to you before, but I used to buy you these basketball hoops and all this when you were little. But I didn't care. I just wanted you to go to school and get your grades and stuff like that, because I know what basketball did to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I know what school did to me. See, me playing basketball made it easier for me to get through school and not take advantage of really getting a good education. And see, I learned that in the end when I got old, when you started going to school. And that's why I never wanted that for you. Like I said, I don't care if you didn't play. Any sport that you played, I was going to be there for you and stuff like that. But I just wanted you to get an education. Because what we were just saying sometimes, it only take, I tell Brianna, I was telling Brianna, and Brianna picked up from you. And I was telling her, these are the years that you got to work now. And then once you finish these years, it's going to be easier for you then.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to struggle like me, like your mom, like that. Like you don't have to struggle like me. You don't have to struggle like your mom. And who does pretty good. But, and that's the thing about now, hard work now makes it easier later. but I didn't work hard then, and now I got to struggle the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think you're doing all right though. But yeah, I think we're gonna touch on that definitely a little bit later. But before we hop into the nitty gritty, I came across an interesting article this week. It was about the decline in high school sports participation levels. It was the first drop. 2018-2019 was the first drop in overall participation, so across all sports across the country, in 30 years. They hadn't seen a decline since 88-89 school year. And it was the fifth consecutive year in a row that football participation declined, which, that's been a trend. The more people become aware of the long-term health effects of head trauma or brain trauma, and just become more aware of the risk with football. But a few other stats. So 2017, 2018, that was a record high for high school sports participation. There were about 7,980,000 athletes across the country, and that dropped by about 43,000 students the following year. So a slight dip. I wouldn't call that very significant. I feel like I keep beating up the table or something. You hear that?
Yeah, I heard.
I'm like, is that me? But is the biggest decline going from 2017, 2018 to 2018-19 was 31,000 kids dropped out of football. And, these numbers aren't necessarily like you were playing one year and you weren't playing the next. It's just like overall, when we look at the number of kids playing a sport, they're just not there. So whether it's from, coming up when in those earlier grades before you get to high school and kids just not being interested at that younger age. So now we're not seeing as much engagement later on. But there's something definitely going on here with the decline in sports. And there's this new campaign called Don't Retire Kid. And that's like the commercial I showed you earlier when the kid kind of sits down and gives this retirement press conference about how he's retiring from sports. And there is, a lot of reasons that are mentioned in that commercial. But it really kind of opens your eye to what some kids go through. 'Cause I know we both were athletes. We both, I would say, got decent playing time, right? So we don't know the other side of what it's like for kids who might not always have the best experience. And so some of the things that were mentioned in, again, it's a commercial advertisement trying to get you to see a certain way or feel a certain way. There were some cool things mentioned. What were you going to say?
You know what? It's funny because I remember playing at the Y one time, and I quit because the guy would give me 35 seconds a game. And it was either the first half, he would give me the game. So if I got 35 seconds in the first half, I wouldn't play the second half. Or if I got 30 seconds in the and you know what, I quit. I really stopped.
How old were you then?
I probably was I was young.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because the first time that I would play limited minutes was when I got to college. By then I was a little bit mature. It still was an adjustment because you go from playing all your life to, playing behind guys that you feel like you might be a little bit better than, really, and especially given, the right system or trust. So it's definitely hard, and that's something that kids can't always see.
But you know what was crazy? I quit playing basketball and joined the gang.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I was young. But then, for some reason, I went back, or I still tried to play basketball. And the guy that was coaching me, I got good enough to be in the league where he was. So, you know what? I really took that out on him when I got to play against him.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it just was touching on me when you say that, because when you don't get to play, what do you do when you do quit?
Right, yeah, and that's something, I want to get to in the, last couple minutes we got on this subject. But, that commercial the kid mentions, it's simply sports just wasn't fun for him anymore. This is an actor, but this is a representation of what a lot of kids probably go through. And, he mentions that one, when coaches kind of leave them on the bench, feeling disengaged, and unless you happen to be on a team where it's a good culture where, no matter if you're the 12th man or, the starting star player, that there's a level of engagement. But that comes with like culture, and usually kids don't get that until they're a little bit older. And, there's a lot of pressure on kids to play these days. Like we see AAU circuits, you see cameras, ball is life at all these games. And so if you're not that talented, or if you haven't blossomed yet, it might be a little bit tough, because people want you to perform at a certain level and you're just simply not there yet. And sports used to be a place for these kids to have fun, but now it's like almost do or die. So the pressure on them is a lot, which is something a lot of people probably don't think about. And especially when you have parents that are, we see videos on social media all the time of parents kind of berating their kid, making fun of their like stupid stuff, and it's like, why are you doing that? He just want to have a good time and be out there. And then you got parents that are living vicariously through their kids. Thank you for not doing that, but that does something to the kid as well. They just want to go out there and play because they like playing basketball, not because you sucked and now you want them to be great. Like, that's not fair to the kid. So it's all these reasons, and I think it opens, it's good because it brings up the conversation that needs to be had, because there is a lot of positive things that comes from playing in sports. Sports is probably the best metaphor for life. That's our best metaphor for life at times. So when you think about the physical component of it, being healthy is a plus, but probably the biggest thing I got from sports was mental toughness, which allowed me to be mentally tough in the classroom and in other areas of life. Then you talk about the emotional side of sports, like learning to control that emotion and channel it into something, greater that can be productive. So there's a lot you can learn. So if kids aren't engaging in sports, like you said, what are they engaging in, and what is gonna replace sports so that they still build these same skills? Is what I'm concerned about.
I was surprised when you said, and then again, I don't know, like the drop in sports, or something like that. To me, like you see people like coming up where we come up out, or in the neighborhood. Like I remember back in the day when they had they used to have I forgot the name, crisis intervention league, and that used to pay for everything, for your uniforms, sometimes give you sneaks, and kids wasn't showing up. And you wonder, and it just had me wondering what you just said, and what really got this, because you said in sports period it's declining, right?
Mm-hmm. It was the first time in 30 years across all sports, basketball, football, baseball, lacrosse, like everything.
Right.
It's a drop in overall number.
Right. And I guess it's like all the things that you said, but see, one thing that I still see is how violence and all that is on the rise. And now you take sports is going down. So that's what I see sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that they didn't mention or put in there. But you got to take that as a factor.
Yeah, in certain communities, that's definitely a factor.
Right. But see, you know what? Not only in certain communities, because even sometimes in the good neighborhoods, the good communities, it brings some of them into the bad community. You might not see this, right? And you might not notice, but where do people, like the good areas, where do they come get their drugs at? In the bad areas. So sometimes they start to hang in there. So it takes people from them areas too and bring them. And just saying, some of them might get hooked on there and stuff like that. Now they don't want to play sports no more, or something like that too.
That's true. And then I think something else that kind of contributes to this is we're in a new era, technology. Yeah, so you got kids that can play video games more. When that wasn't a thing, you had to go outside to have fun. There wasn't much of doing house. You can watch TV, but if you wanted to do something interactive, you had to physically go out and do that. Now you can do it virtually. Just like you can play basketball with your best friend, you can play 2K and have your headset. He can be on the other side of the city, but y'all still are connected. Right. So that's something else that I think can decrease engagement, which, if you're not out there playing, then you're not going to develop skills to play later on when it gets more competitive. And so Yeah, you're gonna have that number is gonna go down in high school. But I think that's just something to kind of keep an eye out for,
Yeah.
in today's society. Um, Trying to think, was there anything else I was thinking of? And so I had a question, and it's like, do you think it's a bad thing that high school sports participation is declining?
I think it's a shame too, and like I'm really kind of surprised that it is. Like the reason that you was talking about football and the reason like about the head injuries and all like that, I could see something like that might be. And I mean like the point like you said, but it's surprising to me
Hmm.
because not to see because you know what you always had a lot of people going out for the teams.
Right.
You always had that. You got to cut. You're a coach. You got to cut people, or you got to have like I know some coaches used to make practice so hard so they didn't have to cut.
Yeah, you let people cut
They
themselves.
cut themselves or something like that. And like you said, like now it's declining. So yeah, it's kind of surprising.
And in terms of whether or not less kids participating is good or bad, I think it depends on. So my biggest thing is the lessons you can learn from playing sports, right? Whether it's teamwork, fighting through adversity, mental tough, like whatever it may be. It's like whatever's taking the place of playing sports, can that substitute teach the same thing, or where can they get that now? So that's my biggest thing. If they can get it somewhere else, then no, it's not really a bad thing. But if that if those lessons are going to be missing from people's development, then I think it might be a little bit of it worries me a little bit. And I can't say it's a terrible thing, because there's a lot of people in this world that don't play sports at all, right? And they're fine. So they can learn things other places. I just think that you know society as a whole is probably a little bit better when you do have certain experiences from playing.
But you know what? You just said something. There's a lot of people that don't play sports, right?
Mhm.
But it's those that might not play sports watches sports.
Mhm.
So you still can get something out of watching it. Like when you because you know what when you watch it and they gonna talk basketball they gonna do all that, they gonna tell you your mistakes, they gonna tell you, so they still learning something.
You wanna know one of the things I like most about usually on watching basketball games on TNT
Mm-hmm.
is when they mic up the players and coaches. I like hearing that interaction, the conversation. I like hearing, guys get into it. I like seeing guys get into it with the coaches. I like seeing what the coach or hearing what the coach says to guys in the huddle, whether they're up 20 or down 20. Like, those things excite me, which even then I'm learning.
Right,
I can
right,
learn
right.
things to motivate myself. And if I'm at work and things aren't going as well, I can learn things to say to my players. So it comes back in, like you said, you can't learn from it.
Sir, like we didn't have the mics and all that when I was coming up and I was little, and I used to watch games. And know what be the nicest thing? When I say, oh, now that team needs timeout, and the coach called timeout. So, like you get in there, you start picking up things and learning things. And like I said, like refereeing, coaching, at a young age, like when we came up over the wire, we was taught the referee, we were taught the coach, we played, and it helped us learn, like it helped you learn, like that. So then when it's times like that, yeah, you can learn from that. And then like, us being guards or something, we supposed to be the coach on the floor anyway. You know what I mean? So we had to be like that and had to learn.
Yeah, I've been having some like metaphorical conversations with some of my players, my nephew this week, because it's back to school season. Got a lot of kids that have gone back to school this week or next week, going back after Labor Day. But there's some things I think they should keep in mind. Like, I had one kid, he's in college now. He's questioning, whether or not he belongs there. And I'm like, well, listen, you're there for a reason. Like, you have goals, you know what you want to accomplish. You're in a major that you're passionate about. And, of course, it's a new look on life almost. When you get there, it's a big transition. And, I'm telling them, I'm like, listen, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It might be rough. But just know you belong there and that you can do it. Whether or not you I'm like, one, you gotta believe you can do it, right? But if you put the work in, it's gonna be all right. And I told him, it's like sometimes that you go out there, you playing, you know. By playing, I mean going through the things you're supposed to do in school, studying, going to class, taking exams. And I was like, sometimes things might not be going the way you want them to, right? Call time out. You know, go back, get refocused. You can call me. You can call some other mentors. You can sit down with your buddies. Then you go back out there and play again. So that same principle of what we would do in the court, you know, when I was coaching them, it's like that same rule applies, you know. And so that's something that, you know, I've experienced. And it's something that kids experience a lot because you hit walls. But it's, you know, figuring out how to get through them. And I encourage, you know, everybody that I talk to, set goals, because if you don't have something you're working for, it's going to be a lot harder to keep pressing on when the going gets tough. You know, you got to have something that you're working for, and I think that that's what always helped me. Like, I watched my mom struggle with me and Tiff in the house, you know, putting, you know, just the sacrifices she made. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, okay, they tell me if I do very well, I can get into a good college. I can get a scholarship so I don't have to pay. And then if I get through college, I can get a good job. And so I kind of bought into that. Not everyone buys into it. And again, college isn't for everyone, right? So that's why I'm a huge proponent of learning trades. I just think you need some form of education in today's society, at least here in America, if you want life to be a little bit easier. So for me, I was like, listen, I want to make a lot of money one day. What do I need to do? They're like, oh, you got to get good grades, right? So I was like, okay, I want to finish at the top of my class, right? That was my goal. And especially, that wasn't like my goal from kindergarten. I wasn't that kid. I wasn't that ahead. I learned about it in 7th grade is when I really started to tick. Because at my middle school, 7th and 8th graders, you pretty much had the same teachers. You like rotated through. And I asked the 8th grade math teacher, I was like, Miss Mac, what you doing? And she was like, I'm calculating overall averages to see who's our valedictorian. I'm like, what's that? She's like, it's the person that finishes top in the class. And I was like, oh, that's a thing? Like, what you get for that? And it's like, oh, yeah, it's a big deal. I was like, I want that, right? So once that became my goal, and then when I found out, like, that was in high school, too, I was like, oh, I gotta get it.
Okay, so the first time was when you was at...
I was in 7th grade when I was at Universal.
No, I remember when you told me that.
And I went, and, you know, it was funny because I thought for a second I wasn't going to get it. So I spent my whole 8th grade year focused on getting that award. I was like, I'm trying to get hundreds on everything, right?
Yeah.
And I always was a guy that, I know if I was aiming for 100, if I came up with a 95, 98, I was in good shape. I could live with it. Even though at times I wanted the 100 very badly, right? And then, you know, kids used to do extra credit and stuff to try to save themselves at the end of the semester. But it was one kid who, his grades were up there pretty high too, and he was doing all this extra credit at the end of the last marking period before 8th grade graduation. And I was like, if this kid beats me, I'm gonna be so mad, because like it shouldn't be fair. Like it should be a cap on it. But I still graduated at the top of my 8th grade class with like a 101 overall average, and I was shocked when I actually won it. But I just remember seeing the look on my family's faces. So you standing up, just looking, you know, grinning, and you know, it was a good experience. I kind of wanted to do that again in high school, so that became my goal. And just having a goal keeps you focused, because there's so many things that can knock you off your square. You can get distracted. You can get enticed by wanting to hang out with your friends. And that's something I've been telling my nephew. I was like, listen, you say you want to do X, Y, and Z in life, right? I can tell you how to get there, but you're going to have to put the work in. So I know sometimes you like leaving school at dismissal so you can hang out with your friends. That's all well and cool, but you got to know when you can do that and when you can't. You got to know when you should stay after school, go to office hours, get your work done, maybe ask the teacher some extra questions, and then go home. And I was like, be a trendsetter. Get some of your friends to stay there with you. So y'all all are, you know, shining together from an academic standpoint. Y'all all putting that work in. And y'all still can travel home together and have fun for a minute until you get home. And I'm telling them, I'm like, listen, you got to also recognize your life is a little bit different at times. Like, we all don't walk in the same shoes. So he has to help out with his younger siblings when he gets home. Not all his friends have to do that, right? So he has this extra limitation. So you can't always do the same things that someone else can do, because y'all not walking in the same shoes. right? So be aware of like your extra hurdles you might have to jump over than some other people. But putting that work in is gonna be rewarding. And I always share with them too. You know, I look at, I try to tell him to look at the people around you, right? So he has his mom, you have my mom, you have me. We all have different levels of education. But I always show him about my mom. I was like, listen, Terry, I graduated college making more than Nana did, and she's been in the workforce like 30 years or something, right? And as a parent, that's what you want. You want your kid to kind of excel past you because that's what you work so hard for, so that they can have a better look at life. And I'm like, I can set you up to go past me because I know things that I didn't accomplish that I wish I would have, that would have propelled me so much further. You just got to be willing to put this work in. It's going to suck at times, but just know if you grind through it for these next 4 to 8 years, talking high school and college, you got like 50, 60 years of life after that. You want those years to be, I told him, I was like, you want to live like a king or you want to live like a peasant? Like, look, the choice is yours. And I know that's a bit extreme, but just so you would see it and get the picture, I'm like, yo, it'll be worth it. It'll pan out. And it's not always fun. It's not always easy. But trust me, it's definitely worth it.
Well, you're totally right. And like, you just got to make sure and just keep an eye of who he around.
Mm-hmm.
Like you saying, him wanting to be with his friends. It's funny because like when you was talking, I remember when I first went to college, and like when you said it's like a new environment. I went to college and I flunked my first 2 tests, and it was funny because my coach got me. I had to go to tutoring. I had to go there, and like after that. I was a 3.2 student my first semester.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Like my first semester. Then, I tell you how my coach was. And it's funny because, like I said, I never really put the work in. I could do the work, but I just never did it.
Yeah, you see that a lot too.
Huh?
I said that's something you see a lot too. Kids with potential, they just don't apply.
Like
apply themselves.
Like I'm saying, I never took advantage of what I could have got or what I could have achieved. I didn't take advantage of it because I lived the other way so much. And then like it was funny at midterm the next semester, my coach go, how can you go from a 3.2 to a 1.3? So now I had to work back up to bring my grades back up the second half. But see, like, and you was talking about something like that. 'Cause, I knew that I could do it, and I knew it wasn't no problem. I mean, I didn't want it to be but that's what I did.
You know what you should have told them?
What?
They're like the same way you switches in zones in the game. 1 minute we playing a 3-2, next thing you playing a 1-3-1.
Yeah.
Same way. I'm just playing.
Yeah, but like I said, I never just really took advantage of things, back then because, like I said, I was there and partying and doing all the other things that I didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now I gotta cram for the test or something like that, or get ready, but. I could do it, and I did it, but I didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, talking about like not fully applying yourself. I love talking to my nephew. Like that's my little guy right there. But he, I had him focused on, setting goals, right? So I'm like, listen, you talk to me. You tell me what you want to achieve, and we can put a little reward in place, right? So he's like, if I get 90s in all my classes, can you buy me 2K? And I know his potential, right? Whether he realizes it or not. I'm like, I know your potential. I know it's not going to be easy. You might have to sacrifice some things, but I think he can be a 95 overall, a higher student, just because he has the brain. Like, the brain is there. Like, I talk to this kid. I see the work he puts in his. When you limit distractions, if he becomes a little bit more proactive at doing things, so when he does have to help out around the house, it doesn't interfere too much. I'm like, he can do it. So I challenged him. I was like, listen, because I want him to get 98s, but he got to grow and get there. I definitely see his mindset shifting. I was like, if you have a 95 overall average, so not necessarily a 95 in every class, like let's say you get a 93, you offset that with a 97 in a different class, like I'll get you 2K. And so now that's what he wants to do. Right, so he's focused on his goal, and day one of school usually it's just orientation. I'm like, "Are you gonna hit your goals this year?" And he's like, yeah, but before that, he said something to me like, I'm going to high school. It's gonna be a little bit different. I want to take it slow. And I'm like, what does that mean, right? Like, don't go into the mindset like, oh, I'm taking things slow, because you can easily end up in that's a trap in my eyes. I'm telling him, I'm like, if you told me you want to finish towards the top of your class or at the top of your class, you got to come out guns blazing. And being that I can share with him my experiences having done it, I'm like, listen, I came in with the mentality that I was going to be number one, but even all along the way, there were people right on my heels, right? So let's say, had I come in slow, taking it slow, maybe not fully going 100%, I could have been the person always on someone's heels, right? So it's a much different narrative. I'm like, if you want to do it, you can do it. Like, it's not always going to be easy, but just know if you put your mind to something, like, it sounds cliche, but really, once you fully buy into something that there's no stopping you, you're going to find a way to get it done. Like, I talk about all the time, just once I said I'm applying for the Gates Scholarship, there was nothing that was going to make me miss that deadline. Because I got a little bit of a late jump on it, because I thought I had to sit through that class in high school, kind of go through the workshop to apply. But once I found out I could do it on my own, I was like, all right, I'll get home from practice at like 8. I'll do my homework, so that probably take me like 10:30, 11. And then each night, write an essay, proofread it, rewrite, start the next one. Outline, maybe start writing the first couple paragraphs or so. Then repeat next night. Finish that one, proofread it, rewrite it, outline the next one. And I did that for like a week straight because there was so many of them. But, I shared that to say, like, yo, if you're out there, you listen to this, and, you're trying to figure out how I should go about this, yo, just go for it. Shoot high. If you aim for the stars, at worst, if you come up a little short, you still land amongst the clouds. And I think that's a good philosophy for anything in life.
You know how much you help Brianna. You really help her. And like when you say that, you know what? She want to live like you. She want the good things. She want a real good job. And it's all because like she see how you live. And things like that.
I tell her she on a better track than me. She talks about the relationship she has with some of her professors.
Yeah.
I'm like, you better than me. I was scared to walk into the office when I was your age in college. So I think she's definitely on the track, but that's something you got to do. And that's another thing I have down here is for kids whether you're going back to elementary, middle, high school, college, respect your teachers, especially the good ones, and find mentors. Because they're going to help you navigate spaces. Like, it's new. A lot of times you're in new uncharted territory for yourself. So it's like now once you build those relationships with those people, you got people there to help you, because we can't do it alone. Like, I'm a firm believer in it takes a village. Like, you're not going to be self-made. Like, the notion of being self-made, I think, is a little bit misleading at times, because very rarely does anyone get to a certain realm 100% on their own. Like, someone opened the door for you somewhere along the way. Like, somebody sold into you. But we also got to allow people to sow into us, which is just as important.
And that's something I tell people too. I believe you don't do anything by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I always believe that. Whether some kind of way you needed some help.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you open a store, you still got to buy your stuff from somewhere. You still got for you to make more money. You still got to do it. It still got to come. You can't do it by yourself. It ain't like you making the materials and all like this and like that. It's no way.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you got to go buy the boxes. You got to go buy the bags. You got to use something.
Mm-hmm. And then, I think another important thing is, and might be the hardest thing, but you got to build good habits if you want to be successful. So I think one thing that hurt me when I got to college is some of my habits weren't the best, because high school kind of came a bit easy for me. I didn't have to do a lot. When I got to college, I didn't really know how to study. Like, that was new to me.
That's why I flunked the 2 tests.
So, like, I had to basically develop a new skill set. And so again, you talk about hitting the wall. That's when it became time for me to call a timeout. Call a little full timeout. Let me go to the learning center. Let me see if they can offer me. Let me talk to some people that I see making flashcards. Like, yo, what you writing on these? And it's like, oh, you can also make a little virtual one, the Quizlet, which even puts together a test for you. So I had to go find some new tools. But you hit that wall and it's like, okay, all right, let me refocus. Let me come up with a new plan of attack. But then you got to really hold on to that new strategy, right? Because it's easy just to do something one time. It's hard to be consistent. One thing Coach Dev used to always tell our players is, it's strength and consistency, not numbers. You can go out there and score 30 one night, but like your dude from college, you can have 2 every other game.
Oh, you funny. You know what? It's funny that you just mentioned that. He was one of the ones that came here that day. Remember when I went to meet them? Yeah, yeah. He was one that came up here.
Yeah, so it gets real out here, but I just wanted take an opportunity to make sure we sending our kids off right when they go back to school. Adopt that no stopping, insert your name here when you walk in that classroom. Walk with a purpose. That was something that was in the pen locker room when I was there. It was like walking your purpose. So before every game I would touch that, even just leaving off to go leave the gym. That's something that always stuck with me. Like, figure out what your purpose is. Figure out what you want to do. And then work to get there. So every day I step out. I know I got my mind focused on. Sometimes it feels like a million things. But, sometimes just break it down. Like, I want to do this today. I really want to accomplish this. And then go out and do it. Because it's possible. It is possible. So, yeah. Love y'all. Oh, wait. You know what? Might cut that. But, yeah. Love y'all. We're about to have to get out of here. We got to bounce. But just remember, put the work in today to sow into your future. That way you can reap a greater harvest tomorrow. But yeah, gotta get out of here. You got anything you want to say, Pops?
No, like you said about it all, and touched on it about it all. So yeah, the only thing I say is see you next week.
Deuces.
Peace.